West Point graduate, Korean War veteran, Philippine Constabulary officer, and then its chief in the years before EDSA 1986. His defection and decision to hold up in Camp Aguinaldo with then Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile and the Ram Boys sealed the fate of former President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. Cory Aquino chose him to be her AFP Chief of Staff, then Defense Secretary, and later presidential candidate. Breaking ranks with the political party LDP after losing to House Speaker Monching Mitra in a convention, Ramos formed Lakas, which was his vehicle to run in 1992. His campaign slogan, a clever take on his name and his date with history, EDSA 92, won that election with just 23% of the vote. But the master tactician, he and House Speaker Joe De Venecia cobbled together a rainbow coalition. As president, he led over a period of economic achievements toward so-called tiger economy status, credited with dismantling monopolies, cheering the country towards Philippines 2000, legislating protection for migrant workers, bringing a measure of peace to Mindanao. Diligent and disciplined, his trademark rolled-up sleeves were not unusual, insisted on CSW, complete staff work, not your regular politician, but mastered the art of war and diplomacy. When he stepped down from office, he did so with grace and dignity, turning over the presidency to the man who handily beat his own choice for president. Everyone knew his trademark thumbs-up sign and his trademark Kaya Natin To rallying cry and his trademark sense of humor. He was Steady Eddie, the man who kept democracy alive and intact through every coup Cory Aquino faced down. He was Tabaco, the man who chomped on his cigar like there was no tomorrow. He was FVR, PC Chief, Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Defense Secretary, Commander-in-Chief, husband to Ming, father to 5 daughters, and a grandfather. Soldier, freedom fighter, leader, visionary, patriot, a man of our times, a man for the ages. Good evening, I'm Pio Ontiveros. Welcome to a special presentation of Politics as Usual. Tonight we remember former President Fidel V. Ramos, whom many of us called FVR. Joining me as our first guest is his former Interior Secretary, Raffy Alunan. Secretary Raffy, thank you very much for joining us also via Zoom. Even before, sir, you were DILG Secretary, you were with the Tourism Department noong panahon ni Cory Aquino. And I remember you in the December 1989 coup negotiating with rebel soldiers, the Ram Boys who had holed up in a hotel in Makati. But let's talk about those years with the Cory government. You met and worked with FVR at that time, who was first AFP Chief and then Defense Secretary. What was that like, sir?
Well, first of all, thank you, Pia, for having me. And very happy to say a few things about my experience with FVR. Yes, you're correct. We served together in the cabinet of President Cory Aquino. I entered as an undersecretary and later on became his peer in the cabinet as Secretary of Tourism. We worked together on many occasions. Foremost in my mind were the disaster relief operations that we conducted together after the Baguio earthquake, Pinatubo, and we also worked together in preserving Camp John Hay. He provided strategic support by giving me General Gaudencio Tobias, who was his boss in PhilCat, and General Demi Camp, who provided a battalion of Air Force security personnel to help me preserve Camp John Hay the way we received it from the Americans who left abruptly after the and of course when we discussed the bases with the United States, the first person I went to was Secretary Ramos to ask whether I could take on that job, because I said I will not take it on unless I have the full support of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, because there's no sense in holding the flag up high without the AFP backing me up. And to a man, Secretary Ramos, General De Villa, General Giason, General Mapadilla, and the rest of the High Command said, "This is our moment, stand your ground, work for the national interest, we'll back you up."
Secretary Rafi, you campaigned for FVR in 1992 when he ran for president. Why did you want him to be president?
Why did he want to be president?
Why did you want him to be president?
Why did I want him to be president? Yeah. Okay, well, that's a very good question. I wanted him to be president because I was already impressed with him even before he worked for President Cory Aquino while he was still in the administration of President Marcos, because he represented the good side of the armed forces. He symbolized reform. He symbolized professionalism. And I already saw in him a leader that we could count on or rely upon when the time came. And that time eventually came in February 1986. And during the time that he served as Secretary of National Defense under President Cory, he defended the seat of democracy and the centers of power, centers of gravity in Metro Manila, and prevent these authoritarian forces from regaining power. He impressed me already in February 1986 as one of those who was instrumental in restoring freedom and democracy, which we needed so badly to push the country, and he believed in that. But he was put to the test during the time of President Cory, where he had to quell about maybe 7 coup attempts. Two of them were the most, shall we say,
Most violent.
hurtful.
August 1987, December 1989.
Yes, but it was most hurtful to the economy, to the point where by 1989 we were back again as Asia's sick man. Our economy plunged in 1989 in the same manner as it had plunged in 1983 when Ninoy Aquino was assassinated.
Secretary Rafi, one story, one little vignette about him that will make us remember him.
Oh wow, you're asking for the impossible because I have so many.
I know.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will always remember him for, he empowered us. He was a very good leader and manager. He forged a good team and really lived up to his mantra of unity, solidarity, and teamwork. We were ordinary people working in the cabinet. We were no superstars at all. But he had a good eye for people who could work together. And that we did. We worked and we were able to deliver under his leadership. So I'll never his code of good governance and good citizenship, which fell under 9 words, PI. I'll never forget these 9 words because I've instilled it. I've internalized it. Unity, solidarity, teamwork, caring, sharing, daring, and reform, perform, transform. And if we were to follow all those 9 words every day in our lives, we would be able to transform ourselves into better Filipinos for a better Philippines. That's the legacy he left behind. That's the one I'll remember the most.
Thank you so much for those stories about former President Ramos and for those 9 words, for reminding us about those 9 words. Very glad, sir, that you can join us. Former DILG Secretary Raffy Alunan. Salamat po, sir. The Armed Forces also paying tribute to its former Commander-in-Chief with traditional full military honors and services. We'll talk about that with Navy Captain Leo Dimoc. He's joining us live via Zoom. Captain, or the equivalent rank.
Installations and comms, and reading of the notice of death of the former president was then rendered by the commanders of those military installations. But before that, during the same day, there was a firing of guns that started at 5 o'clock in the morning. It is made possible by the firing of 8 successive gunfires by our artillery pieces. And then immediately at 6 o'clock in the morning of the same day, there was a single fire also from our artillery pieces successively every after 30 minutes. And then it goes until 5 o'clock in the afternoon during our retreat, wherein another 8 salvos of the artillery pieces fire were rendered again.
At may
That was the first day.
At may ibig sabihin ng 8 guns, right, Leo?
Yes, Ms. Kia, that signifies the 8 provinces, symbolizes the 8 provinces that first fought against Spain during the Philippine Revolution. It's the same symbolism as what is depicted in the Race of the Sun in our Philippine flag.
And of course, as a former president, commander-in-chief, a former general, what we saw in FDR's wake are vigil guards, for example, the flag beside the urn. Captain Leo Dimoc of J3 of the Armed Forces, which is in charge of these military honors and services, will be explaining all that and more after this very quick break. Be right back.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
Former Commander-in-Chief. Leo, kanina binanggit ko na, no, yung vigil guards, for example, what we see in the wake. Very quickly, can you explain all that to us?
Yes, Ms. Pia, during the death of our former President Fidel Ramos, we are actually mandated to provide a vigil watch to the former president. This is composed of one vigil officer and 4 vigil guards. On top of that, we are providing an officer in attendance that is closely coordinating with the family. And this will be done during the wake until his interment.
Okay, let's talk about that, the interment, the day of the burial. Tell us what we're going to see, and let's go through the rundown. We have a funeral procession from Heritage Park where FDR's remains are being waked. And we will have what you call graveside honors. Sige, Leo, ikwento mo sa amin. Of course, this is good that we're talking to you because you were in charge also of the funeral honors for former President Noy Aquino last June. So, kumbaga, uulitin nyo lang yan lahat. So, ikwento mo lang sa amin what is going to happen every step of the way.
Yes, ma'am. As what we previously did during the death of the former president, also President Benigno Aquino last year, on the day of burial, that will be on 9 August in the morning, prior to the former president. Of course, this will be again with the inclusion of the traditional 21 gun salute. After the arrival honors at the Libingan ng mga Bayani point of arrival, there will be a funeral march then that will proceed from the arrival honor area to the interment area which is at the presidential section of Tilimigan ng mga bayani. And that will be done by a funeral march that will be rendered from the point of arrival, wherein the arrival honors were rendered, until the interment area or the presidential section at that site where he will be interred. And during the funeral march, there will be flower drops that will be performed by our
Air
assets from
Force
the Air Force,
choppers. Okay.
placed over the grave. This is actually a rifle fire from a section of the firing party composed of non-commissioned officers firing 3 volleys. At the last volley, that's the time where the taps will be sounded of the grateful nation. That's where the narrative is.
And Leo, kanina you said no, there will be a funeral procession, may honor guard, no, that will move from Heritage to, I'm sorry, within Libingan. Brigade size ito, correct?
It is the arrival honors is a battalion size full military honors, and then the procession will be a brigade size, which will be also included to be participated by the battalion size arrival honors.
When you say, all right, when you say battalion and brigade, how many? Go ahead.
There is an order actually. First, it will be the escort or the commander with the staff, and then the colors followed by the band that played the music, and then the funeral escorts, and followed by the chaplain service or the clergy, and then the hearse with the honorary pallbearers on the sides, and then the active pallbearers composed of the non-commissioned officers, and then the family and relatives, together with the military host, which is the chief of staff, and the co-host will be the heads of the Philippine Air Force, the commanding general of the Philippine Army, and the flag officer in command, which are co-hosts of this activity. And then followed by the friends and other patriotic and fraternal organizations.
Do we know already who the honorary pallbearers are?
It will be designated by the personnel division of the armed forces.
All right. And you said as military host, it is the Chief of Staff, the Armed Forces. This is an honor to a former president because the Chief of Staff is not military host to other burials, correct?
Yes, there is only one military host to presidents and former presidents, and it is only the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Together with the major services commanders. Is there anything else, Captain Leo, that we need to know that we're going to see on August 9th?
That is exactly what will happen during the interment day. And as soon as the flag is presented to the next of kin, and that will be the end of the ceremonies for that particular day. However, the mourning will still continue until on that day also, wherein that was the day wherein all the flags will be flown half staff, half mast. But for the military, the morning band, what I'm wearing right now, will be continued and it will end on 29 August, 30 days after the death of the president.
For 1 month. Leo, itong dinescribe nyo, no, this will all go by clockwork. This is tradition. You are not going to deviate from tradition. This is what we've seen before. We will see again on August 9th, right?
Yes, it's clear that is the military traditions and the military honors that is presented. That's the highest respects that being presented by the EAP to our fallen Commander-in-Chief and former President.
And your snappiest salute for him, of course. Captain Leo Dimok of the Navy and of the J3 Armed Forces of the Philippines. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. You're still watching a special presentation of Politics as Usual as we pay tribute to the legacy of FDR. My next guest is a veteran journalist, Pulitzer Prize winner, and a former member of Malacanang and the Defense Press Corps. Speaking to us via Zoom is Manny Mogato. Manny Mogs, hi, thank you so much for being here. Manny, good evening. Kailan mo nakilala si FDR? And what was that first meeting like?
I started covering FDR in January 1987. I was a police reporter for the Manila Chronicle when it resumed publication in June 1986. After 6 months, because there was so many coup attempts against Cory Aquino, my editors moved me to military and defense coverage. So my baptismal part started in January 1987 when Colonel Oscar Canlas stormed GMA-7
Right.
and occupied it for 3 days. And so that was the time I saw former President and former Armed Forces Chief, Fidel B. Ramos. I found him very strict, no? Suplado si FBR. No? Kasi
Tama.
I remember during press conference, when hindi gusto yung mga tanong, tayo na lang sa bigla, iiwan kami. So kami nakatawa nga. Bakit mo siya nagalit sa atin? No?
Baka kasi hindi maganda yung tanong nyo, baka hindi maayos ang tanong nyo. Kaya
Kasi
tumayo.
minsan masyadong maangas yung mga reporter eh. So anyway, ang problema naman namin kay FBR when answering during press conferences, isang tanong mo lang, ang haba niyang sumagot. Paikot-ikot, no? Paikot-ikot. Now, ibalikan mo, tignan mo yung tape recorder mo, i-transcribe mo, wala pala sinabi.
Nang bola pala.
Nang bola lang. Medyo aliw-aliw kami kay FBR kasi nga, siya para biro, yung nga lang, yung mga jokes na corny, no? Na siya nandoon, no? At the same time, he also gave a lot of exclusive interviews sa mga publication
Oo.
na nag-request.
Manny,
I read
sandali.
Malacanang.
Manny, sandali Teka, bago mo ituloy yan, mag-OT na tayo. Pero we need to take one short quick break. We'll come back to you, Manny, dahil meron pa rin tayong isa pang guest, yung dati niyang aide-de-camp, si retired Colonel Dencio Acop. Manny, sandali lang When we come back, politics as usual, be right back.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
Barangay ng MPA kasi umulan, hindi makalipad. So it was a 12-hour trip from Borongan to Tacloban. Nasa loob ako ng B-150 with FBR, and all the time he was reading and writing marginal notes, yung kanyang famous red pen.
Right. Famous marginal notes. Everybody knows that. Okay.
Yes, so at multitasker si FBR. Doon sa Bacolod, may town hall meeting, maingay. Si FBR nagbabasa at susulat. Padel, madaling araw gising na para magbasa ng news clippings na pinapadala ni Lulu Ilustre. At naglalagay siya ng marginal notes doon sa mga clippings. So, yun.
Yeah. This must have been challenging for you, Manny. Di ba? Kasi as journalists, we do our best to keep a safe distance from those we cover, no? But apparently, you did get very up close and personal with him. But I'm going to go first kasi nakuubos yung oras na privileged to have witnessed and had been a part of, sir.
Hi, good evening again, Pia, and thank you for inviting me. Medyo mahirap sagutin. Many things to say about the great man. I feel honored to have even been associated with him in some way. Marami, Pia. I remember one time during the December 89 coup. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Alright, I think we have a little bit of a... Alright, medyo But you are joining us for the coverage of his burial on Tuesday. So doon nyo po talaga makikwento lahat. But for tonight, just one story, sir.
All right. Yeah, I remember one time during the December 89 coup, he was the Secretary of Defense. I was his Deputy Chief of Security. And binobomba yung Camp Aguinaldo, yung Department of Defense. And then bigla na lang sinabi ni FBR na, hali kayo, nung huminto na yung pagbobomba ng mga tora-tora, sabi niya, let's go out of the building and check the damage. So nagulat kaming lahat kasi siyempre, alam mo naman, delikado yun, di ba? Baka bumalik and all that. So, we accompanied him outside. Naglakad-lakad kami sa parade field ng Cabaginaldo, and then luckily, the rebel planes never came back to hit us again. Pero tapos on the way back, sabi niya sa akin, saan tayo pwedeng pumunta? Sabi ko, what do you mean, sir, na saan tayo pwedeng pumunta? Kasi it's so unexpected. We didn't really have a contingency plan for that kind of, at that time. So, bininolo ko si FBR, sabi ko sa kanya, sir, siguro maganda, huwag tayong pumunta dun sa alam ng kalaban na lagi ninyong pinupuntahan. So, let's find a place na unexpected, maybe just like a safe house, sabi niya. Sabi ko sa kanya, sabi niya sa akin, may alam ka ba? Sabi ko, yes sir, meron, sa Quezon City. But expectedly sabi niya, no, I think we need to be visible to the people, sabi niya. Kahit anong gawin natin, we have to be seen, not running away from the rebels, but fighting them head on, sabi niya. We are the government, we are not running away, sabi niya.
Mogato joining us also via Zoom. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Fidel Valdez Ramos, 12th President, a man of our times, a man for the ages. Rest well, Mr. President. Thank you for your service. Our snappiest salute.